Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now let's begin. I was 27 when I moved to Boston for work. I had landed a decent job at a small marketing firm, and the pay was just enough to afford a place on my own. After weeks of searching, I found a townhouse for rent at a ridiculously low price. It was old but spacious, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood near Beacon Hill. The landlord seemed eager to get it off his hands, which should have been my first red flag. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. A strange, heavy stillness, like the air itself had weight. The wooden floors creaked under my steps and a faint, musty smell lingered in the air. The place was fully furnished, though everything looked outdated, like no one had lived there for decades. But I brushed it off. Old houses always had a certain charm, and for the price I couldn't complain. The first night was uneventful aside from the occasional groan of the pipes and the distant sound of traffic outside. But something about the house felt off. There were no personal touches, no photos, no leftover belongings from the previous tenants. Just a house sitting eerily untouched, waiting. By the third night, I started noticing little things. The sound of footsteps when I knew I was alone. The way the doors seemed to shift slightly as if adjusting themselves. My bedroom door, which I always closed before bed, would be slightly open in the morning. At first, I blamed it on drafts, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. One evening, I was working late in the small study on the second floor. The room had a massive old bookshelf filled with dust-covered novels and a heavy wooden desk that looked like it belonged in a museum. As I sat there, I heard a creak behind me. I turned, expecting to see nothing, but the chair by the window had moved just slightly. I could have sworn it was facing the wall before. I laughed it off, telling myself I was imagining things, but then, just as I turned back to my laptop, the chair scraped against the floor again. This time, an inch closer. Sleep became difficult after that. Every time I turned off the lights, I felt like something was standing just out of sight. I started keeping my bedroom door locked, but every morning, I would wake up to find it slightly ajar. One night, I even stacked a pile of books against it, but they were undisturbed, yet the door was still open. Then came the whispering. Not loud, just a faint, unintelligible murmur coming from the hallway outside my room. I sat up, heart pounding, and strained to listen. It stopped as soon as I focused on it. I told myself it was just the house settling, but deep down I knew that was a lie. The following day, I decided to check the basement. I had avoided it until then. It was cold, damp, and the kind of place you instinctively didn't want to be in, but curiosity got the better of me. The wooden steps creaked under my weight as I descended, the air growing noticeably colder. At the bottom, I found nothing but old furniture, broken boxes, and a strange wooden door I hadn't noticed before. It was smaller than a normal door, barely 4 feet high, and looked out of place, almost like it was added later. When I tried the handle, it wouldn't budge, but as I turned to leave, I heard a soft thump from the other side. I nearly ran up the stairs, locking the basement behind me. That night, I barely slept. I kept my eyes on the door, waiting for something, anything, to happen. And then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., I heard it, a single deliberate knock on my bedroom door. I stopped breathing. Another knock came, slow and purposeful. Then the door handle twisted. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. The handle jiggled again, harder this time. I reached for my phone, fumbling in the darkness. But as soon as I grabbed it, the sound stopped. The silence was worse. For what felt like hours, I lay there frozen, waiting. Then, just as I started convincing myself I had imagined it, I heard whispering, right outside the door. I didn't sleep that night. The whispering stopped after a few minutes, but the fear it left behind didn't fade. I sat up in bed staring at the door, waiting for another knock or the sound of footsteps, but the house had returned to its unsettling silence. It felt worse that way, like whatever was there knew I was listening. At sunrise, I made up my mind. I needed to get out. I threw some clothes into a bag and grabbed my keys, ready to leave the house behind. But as I reached the front door, something stopped me. The air felt thick, heavy, like I was pushing against an invisible force. My fingers tightened around the knob, but I couldn't turn it. It wasn't locked. It just wouldn't move. I stumbled back, my heart hammering. Every fiber of my being told me I was not alone. Then, from the second floor, I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving toward the stairs. I ran, not outside because I knew that wouldn't work. I ran for the kitchen, grabbing the heaviest thing I could find, a cast iron pan. The footsteps reached the landing, but I refused to look. My entire body screamed, "Don't turn around." Instead, I forced myself to move, reaching for my phone. As soon as I unlocked it, every light in the house flickered violently. The power didn't go out completely, but the dim, stuttering glow of the bulbs made everything look warped, like the house was shifting around me. Then the whispering started again, but this time it was inside the kitchen. I spun around, pan raised, but nothing was there, just shadows stretching across the walls, twisting as the flickering light distorted them. My breath was ragged, my fingers numb from gripping the pan so tightly. And then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The light steadied, the house fell silent, the front door was open. I didn't hesitate, I bolted. The moment I stepped outside, the air felt normal again. I didn't look back. I got in my car, shaking, and drove without a destination. I just needed to get away. I checked into a cheap motel on the other side of town, convincing myself I'd figure things out in the morning. But as I sat on the bed trying to process what had happened, my phone buzzed, a motion alert from the security camera I had installed in the townhouse AS living room. With trembling hands, I opened the app. The screen loaded, showing the dimly lit living room. At first, nothing seemed out of place. Then the motion marker shifted. Someone was standing at the bottom of the stairs. My fingers hovered over the screen, unable to press play. The figure stood completely still at the base of the stairs, facing the camera. The grainy quality made it impossible to see details, but I knew it was looking right at me. Then the video jumped. A glitch. When it resumed, the figure was closer. No movement, no steps, just an abrupt shift forward. My breath caught in my throat. The timestamp was still counting, but the feed skipped again. Closer. I slammed the phone down like it had burned me, my pulse pounding in my ears. Then another notification. Motion detected, front door. I swallowed hard and reached for the phone again. My hands shook as I opened the app. The screen loaded, revealing the front door slightly ajar. Nothing outside, no movement. But before I could react, the feed cut to black. I threw the phone onto the bed and backed away, my stomach twisting in knots. I wasn't safe here. I wasn't safe anywhere. My mind raced for a solution, but there was nothing to do. No one to call. I couldn't explain any of this without sounding insane. Then a sound, a knock, not at the townhouse, at my motel door. My body locked up. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The knock came again, slow and deliberate. I crept toward the door, heart pounding, and pressed my eye against the peephole. At first I saw nothing but the dimly lit walkway outside. Then something shifted. A shape moved just out of view, standing in the blind spot where the doorframe cut off the sightline. I whispered to myself, "Don't open it." The handle jiggled. My entire body turned ice cold. I stumbled back, pressing my hands against my mouth to keep from making a sound. Whoever, whatever, was on the other side wasn't knocking for attention. It was trying to get in. I grabbed my car keys and bolted through the bathroom window, sprinting to my car without looking back. I didn't care about my things. I didn't care about anything except getting as far away as possible. I never went back to the townhouse, not to collect my stuff, not to see what was inside. I never even checked the camera again. Whatever lived in that house, it wasn't meant to be found, and I think it followed me. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more true horror stories. I had always dreamed of living in a high-rise penthouse in downtown Chicago. At 29, after a big promotion, that dream finally came true. My new apartment was on the 30th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city skyline. The rent was surprisingly low for such a luxury place, but I didn't think much of it. Excited for a fresh start, I moved in without hesitation. For the first few nights, everything seemed normal, almost too perfect. The silence at night was unsettling, a strange contrast to the city's constant noise. Then I started hearing faint sounds, like soft footsteps, even though I was alone. At first, I brushed it off as the building settling. But it wasn't random creaks. It was rhythmic, deliberate, like someone walking just out of sight. One night, I woke up suddenly at exactly 3:12 a.m., heart pounding for no reason. The room was still. No sound, no movement. Just an eerie sense that something had disturbed me. I turned on the bedside lamp and scanned the room, but everything was in place. I tried to sleep again, but the uneasy feeling never left. The next night, the same thing happened. Then, objects started moving on their own. Small things at first. My keys weren't where I'd left them. My closet door, which I always closed, would be slightly open in the morning. I told myself I was just being forgetful. But one evening, while working on my laptop, I heard a soft tapping on the glass window. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I froze, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The penthouse was too high for anyone to be outside. My stomach twisted as I turned my head toward the sound. Nothing, just the dark skyline beyond the glass. I told myself it was the wind, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. The next night, I stayed awake, determined to figure it out. At exactly 3:12 a.m., I heard the same 3 knocks, but this time from inside the apartment. My body went cold. I forced myself to get up and check. The hallway was dark, the air thick and heavy, like it was holding its breath. From the corner of my eye, I saw it, a reflection in the window. Something was standing behind me. I spun around instantly. Nothing, just my pale reflection staring back. After that, paranoia took over. I started sleeping with every light on, double-checking doors, windows, and locks. Yet every morning I'd wake up to small, unsettling changes. Chairs slightly moved, doors ajar, a faint, unfamiliar sweet smell lingering in the air. A week later, I invited a friend over, hoping I was imagining things. We were chatting in the living room when she suddenly went quiet. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, eyes wide. My stomach sank. "Like a knock?" I asked. She nodded, staring down the dark hallway toward my bedroom. I laughed nervously, pretending I didn't hear anything. She didn't stay long after that. When she left, the air in the apartment changed, heavier, charged with something unseen. That night, I barely slept. At exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke again, frozen with the feeling that someone was watching me. I kept my eyes shut, heart pounding. Then I heard it. Slow, deep breathing, right next to my bed. Not mine. I opened my eyes just a crack. The room was pitch black except for the faint city glow through the window. I turned my head slightly and froze. In the reflection of the glass, I saw the silhouette of a figure standing at the foot of my bed. It wasn't moving, just watching. My body locked up in terror. I wanted to reach for the lamp, to run, but I couldn't move. Then, the figure slowly tilted its head. My heart nearly stopped. When I woke to daylight, my body was stiff, my mind fogged with fear. The room was empty, no sign of anything, but the feeling lingered. I tried to convince myself it was sleep paralysis, but every shadow made my skin crawl. I thought about breaking my lease. But how could I explain leaving because of something I couldn't prove? That night, I refused to sleep. I kept every light on. But at exactly 3:12 a.m., the power cut out. The apartment plunged into total darkness. My phone flashlight was the only light, its beam shaking as I aimed it around the room. In the glass balcony door, I saw the reflection again. Closer this time. I spun around, shining the light, but the space behind me was empty. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Then came the sound, a low, slow creak from the hallway. I wasn't alone. The air grew heavy, pressing against my chest. I grabbed my keys with shaking hands and yanked the front door open. The moment I stepped into the brightly lit hallway, the tension vanished, replaced by the normal hum of the city below. I turned to shut the door anchor and froze. A dark figure stood just inside the threshold, hidden in the shadows of my apartment. I slammed the door and ran. I didn't return that night. I checked into a hotel, trembling and sleepless. The next day I tried to act normal at work, but the fear wouldn't fade. The figure, the knocking, the power outage, none of it made sense. But I knew one thing for sure. I could never go back. Still, I had to pack my things. As the sun set, I forced myself to return. The building lobby was bright and busy, but the moment the elevator doors closed, dread filled my stomach. When I reached the 30th floor, the hallway was silent. My apartment door looked normal, too normal. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The air was freezing cold. The lights flickered weakly as I hurried to pack. I focused on the suitcase, refusing to look around. Then I heard it, a whisper. So soft I almost thought I imagined it. But it was there, behind me. I turned slowly. In the reflection of my bedroom mirror, I saw it. Not just a shadow this time, but a face. Hollow eyes, mouth slightly open as if whispering. And then it smiled. I didn't think. I grabbed my suitcase and ran. The mirror shattered behind me with a deafening crack. I could feel something rush past me, a freezing gust of air that made my bones ache. I fumbled with the lock, my heart pounding, when the power cut again. The darkness swallowed everything. I could hear movement, soft, deliberate, closing in. I yanked the door open and stumbled into the hallway. The flickering lights revealed it for a split second. Standing in the doorway, watching me leave. I never went back. I broke my lease the next morning, willing to lose my deposit just to be free of that place. But sometimes late at night, I still wake up at exactly 3:12 a.m. And in the silence of my new apartment, I swear I hear it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I was 26 when this happened, living in Omaha, Nebraska. I worked in construction, often taking jobs that required travel. That summer, I was sent to a rural site miles away from anything. The company rented me an old farmhouse nearby, the only structure for miles. Something about it felt off from the start. The house sat alone in an overgrown field surrounded by tall, dry grass. The nearest neighbor was at least 10 miles away, and the silence was almost unbearable. Inside, the air was stale, carrying the scent of aged wood and something faintly rotten. I told myself it was just dust and disuse. That first night, I struggled to sleep. Sometime past midnight, I woke up to the sound of creaking floorboards. At first, I thought it was the house settling, but then I heard a soft shuffle, like footsteps. I held my breath and listened. The sound came from downstairs, slow and deliberate. I told myself it was my imagination, but my gut said otherwise. I stayed frozen in bed, my heart pounding. The footsteps stopped just beneath my room. My mind raced. Was someone inside with me? The door had been locked and the windows were shut. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, pointing it toward the doorway. Nothing. Just silence. I barely slept that night, every sound amplified by paranoia. The next morning, I searched the house for any sign of an intruder. The locks were intact, and nothing seemed out of place. Maybe I was just tired from the move. I told myself I was being ridiculous and focused on work. By the third night, I was exhausted and hoping for uninterrupted sleep. But at exactly 2:13 a.m., the footsteps returned. This time, they didn't stop. They moved up the stairs, slow, steady, pausing just outside my door. I clutched my blanket, my body rigid with fear. Then the doorknob rattled. I nearly stopped breathing. It was as if someone was testing it, checking if it was locked. I wanted to call someone, but who? The nearest police station was an hour away, and what would I even say? I stayed still, waiting. Minutes passed before the sound faded. When I finally gathered the courage to check, the hallway was empty. The only thing I noticed was that the air was colder, as if something had passed through. The rest of the night I kept my back against the wall, watching the door until morning. The next day I decided to check the basement. I had avoided it before. Something about it made my skin crawl. The door was in the kitchen, locked with an old, rusted latch. I hesitated before forcing it open. A wave of damp, moldy air hit me as I shined my flashlight down. I descended slowly, each step echoing in the stillness. The basement was cluttered with broken furniture and old boxes. Dust swirled in the air, disturbed by my movement. Then, in the farthest corner, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Faint, childlike handprints smeared across the concrete wall. A pressure built in my chest, an overwhelming sense of dread. Something about those handprints felt recent. My mind scrambled for a logical explanation, but I found none. I backed away, nearly tripping over a stack of rotting crates. That's when I heard it, a whisper. A single drawn-out word. Leave. I bolted up the stairs and slammed the door shut behind me, my heart racing so fast it hurt. I told myself it was the wind or maybe my imagination, but deep down I knew better. I needed to get out of that house. The problem was my contract wasn't up for another 3 weeks. I convinced myself I could handle it. Maybe I was overreacting. That night I double-checked the locks and left a kitchen light on. If something was in that house, I wasn't going to make it easy for them. I lay in bed, eyes fixed on the doorway. Hours passed, and just when I thought I might finally sleep, it happened again. A creak, slow and deliberate, just outside my room. Then the sound of nails dragging along the wood. I gripped my blanket, paralyzed. This time I saw something, a shadow, long and thin, passing under the gap beneath the door. My breath hitched. It wasn't a trick of the light. There was movement. I reached for my phone, but my hands were shaking too much to unlock it. The shadow lingered, then came a knock. 3 slow, rhythmic taps. My heart nearly stopped. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The air felt thick, pressing against my chest. Another knock. Louder this time. Whatever was outside knew I was awake. Suddenly, the door handle twisted violently. I jumped up, backing against the wall. The pressure against the door increased, as if something was pushing from the other side. I wanted to scream, but my throat was dry. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for it to stop. After what felt like forever, everything went silent. The handle stilled. The air felt normal again. I waited, heart pounding, before forcing myself to check. I opened the door a crack and peered into the hallway. Nothing. But as I turned to go back inside, I noticed something that froze my blood. The floorboards outside my room, where the shadow had been, were covered in small, wet footprints. They led back toward the basement door. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat in the corner watching the door, waiting, but the house was silent again. Unnaturally so, like whatever had been there was now watching, waiting. Morning couldn't come fast enough. As soon as the sun rose, I packed a bag and drove into town. I needed to talk to someone, anyone who might know something about the house. At a small diner, I asked the waitress about the property. She exchanged a glance with the cook before lowering her voice. "You're staying there?" she asked. "That place has a history." I leaned in, pulse quickening. She told me the house had been abandoned for decades before my company rented it out. The last known residents were a family from the 1960s. Their young daughter, Margaret, went missing one night and was never found. Her parents moved away, and no one had lived there since. A deep chill settled in my bones. The footprints, the whisper in the basement. Was it her? The thought made my skin crawl. I debated leaving the job altogether, but I needed the money. Against my better judgment, I decided to stay, just one more night. That evening, I returned to the house, determined to keep every light on. I placed my bag near the door, ready to leave at a moment's notice. For a few hours, nothing happened. The house was quiet, eerily so. But then, around 2 a.m., the temperature dropped. The air turned heavy, pressing against my skin like a weight. A faint scratching echoed through the walls. At first, it was distant, coming from below. Then it moved, climbing up through the vents, growing louder. It was inside the walls. I backed away, heart hammering. The sound stopped, replaced by something worse. A child's laugh, soft, breathless, right behind me. I spun around, but the room was empty, my vision blurred with fear. I had to get out. I grabbed my bag and sprinted for the door. Just as my fingers touched the handle, the door slammed shut on its own. My breath hitched. I pulled, yanked with all my strength, but it wouldn't budge. The lights flickered, the walls groaned, and then the whisper came again, right next to my ear. "Stay." I stumbled back as something cold brushed against my arm. That was it. I wasn't waiting another second. I kicked the door, shoved with my shoulder until it burst open. I ran to my car without looking back and didn't stop driving until I was miles away. At a gas station, I sat in my car trying to steady my breathing. I knew I couldn't go back. I decided to call my boss and quit. Whatever money they were paying me wasn't worth another night in that house. But before I could dial, I noticed an old man sitting on a bench outside staring at me, like he knew. I stepped out hesitantly. Before I could say anything, he spoke. "You were at the house, weren't you?" His voice was rough like gravel. I froze. How could he know? I nodded, and he sighed. "That place should have been burned down years ago," he muttered. "Margaret was never the only one." His words sent a chill down my spine. I asked what he meant, and he told me the full story. One I wish I'd never heard. The house had been cursed long before the family in the 60s. People went missing there, children mostly. It was as if the house wanted them, as if something inside it fed on their presence. Some say Margaret was just the last victim. Others believe she never really left. The old man looked at me gravely. "You're lucky to have gotten out," he said. "Most don't." My stomach twisted. I asked if anyone had ever tried to destroy the house. He shook his head. "It doesn't let go that easily." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the whisper. Soft, chilling, right against my ear. "Stay." I didn't stay in Nebraska much longer. I left the job, moved back home, and tried to forget everything. But the house didn't forget me. Strange things started happening in my apartment. Small things at first. I'd wake up to find my closet door slightly open when I knew I'd closed it. I'd hear faint scratching inside the walls. And once, just once, I swore I saw a small footprint in the dust near my bed. It's been months now, and I still feel like I'm being watched. Sometimes in the dead of night I hear it again. That same whisper, just barely audible right behind me. "Stay."